Okay, everybody, we're going to start the lab now.
Did everybody bring in a bug or a critter from their garden? Ooh, this is exciting. This is my favorite lab every year, if you can't tell. We're going to start today just with general announcements. Next week, we are across the street again. We're going to go take a look at the vegetable garden, the fruit trees over there. So that's what your chapters will be about. We did upload the lab videos yesterday for those of you that missed class the week before, so those are good to go. And we're going to film this morning so that we can hand off that video to get edited tonight. So we're getting in the swing of things, so it's going a little quicker. Did you guys bring compost? Yeah. Okay, you got some catching up to do, right?
It's full.
It's full now?
Yeah, it's full.
Okay, so that photo is full, right? Okay, great. And did you guys get a chance to take the temperature of it at all? Okay, the thermometers are back here on the sign-in table, so at the end of class, now that we've added material, if you want to, you can, but it's not going to really heat up until like tomorrow or the day after. But if you want to see how those probes work, you can feel free to take it out there and give it a whirl. Any questions from this week's chapters? So pesticide safety and entomology. What was that? Very scary. Very scary, yes. And we're hoping that this week we can kind of demystify some of all that. And we want to introduce, this is a third agent here in this area. This is Chris Dunaway.
Hi, everybody. I'm the funny one.
He's the funny one. Chris is a termite expert. He was working for the state doing the French Quarter termite surveys, if you guys remember that. So he's excellent on termites, but also really good with pesticides. And he's got some case studies that we'll look at after this morning lab's first part. You want to tell them anything else?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you all.
If they have any questions on the pesticides, Chris can answer those too.
Yeah, and we'll take the entomology questions first, and then we'll take a little break halfway through the lab, and then Chris can take some pesticide questions too. So with that, what did you guys learn this week? What do you still have questions about? Anything?
It's not bug related, but so it's kind of a bad idea to
Repeat what happened.
introduce like a different species to control pests. Like if I got a lot of rodents in my garden, it's a bad idea to get a Burmese python.
All right, the question was, is it a bad idea to introduce one species to control another species? So he was saying he's got rats in his backyard. Would it be a bad idea to put a Burmese python back there? Yeah, it's usually a pretty bad idea. What we've found is if it's done kind of hastily, there's no research with using a species to control another species, particularly an invasive species. We bring something in from the other country, maybe a natural predator. Well, what happens when it runs out of that food source you brought it here to control? It starts eating other things, right? And then we have a bigger problem. We have another invasive species. And particularly with the Burmese pythons, there's a feral population of them in Florida where now they're a problem. They get huge, they come into people's yards and eat their pets, so you might bring them in to control rats and then gradually they become another invasive species. A pretty classic example of that is in Australia. They brought in the cane toads, which are highly toxic, as a way to control the cane borers in the sugarcane farms, and now those toads are everywhere, right? They really liked the environment they were brought to. They've become a huge invasive species. Another example of that, anyone have that air potato vine in their yard? It's a vine that kind of covers everything and it makes these, they look like potatoes. Everywhere where one of those potatoes lands, it makes a new vine. There's a beetle that they brought in from Asia to control that vine. Well, they used it in Florida. They were going to try it here. They decided not to try it here because there was too much concern that it would attack a lot of ornamental plants too, and not just the air potato vine. But somebody went to Florida and collected some of the beetles and released them without a permit somewhere near Lafayette. So now we have them throughout the state, and they don't just attack that air potato plant. So it's an example of something being brought to control something, wasn't really researched properly, and now it's a problem. So it can be good, it can be bad. Biological controls can be awesome, but we have to know what we're doing first. And that hasn't always happened in the past.
Can you tell more about commercial biocontrols have been researched?
So, one of my favorite websites actually for biocontrols is no internet. It's called Arbico Organics, and you can get biocontrols that have been researched. They're mass produced, so you can buy wasps, for example. They're breeding these wasps that attack a certain kind of caterpillar. That's been controlled and it's been researched, so that's one thing that you could do is if you look for biocontrols, know what pest you're dealing with, there are some options. In particular, wasps, fly predators, that's another one. Any kind of bacteria, sometimes they'll have that. And then my personal favorite is nematodes. You guys remember what nematodes are? Yeah, they have nematode species that are bred for controlling certain things. I treat my backyard with one that controls the fleas that jump on my dog. Works great, it's a biocontrol, it's about $30. You can't even see them, you water them into the lawn, that's it. So it can be a really good thing, and those are commercially available.
What's the website?
Arbico, A-R-B-I-C-O, organics.
And lady beetles have been used for years.
And
Lady beetles.
oh, ladybugs, right? Who's used ladybugs in their garden ever? Yeah, ladybugs have been used for years.
What about the ladybug that like bites? The one that's
The Asian ones,
Yeah.
cats out of the bag with that. So those are brought in as a biocontrol. They do work. They kind of overcompete all the native species, but at this point they're here to stay. Yeah.
I thought that these honeybees aren't native.
They're not. No, honeybees were brought here by European settlers, and they like it here because the climate's similar to where they're from in Europe and in Asia. So now they're here. Okay.
We do have native bees.
Yes, we have about a few thousand native bee species, and on this back table is my favorite.
Speaking of books,
It's my favorite native bee book. Do you guys hold the native bee book up on your table? Nope, in front of you.
Bees in your backyard.
Yep. So that one is kind of the most user-friendly guide to native bees in North America. It's very pictorial. It gives you the map of where they're ranging, and it gives you ideas for how to create habitat for your yard. A lot of them nest in the ground. They don't make hives or honeycomb, right? Really only the European honeybees do that. So that's a really good resource if you guys want to take a look at it. Other bug questions?
Seems like a lot of the insects we have here are quite small, live on the back of the leaves, and more like scale or mite category.
I'm sorry?
Are they like scales or mites?
Yes.
It's very hard to like identify and
So-
sometimes see, but you can see the structure.
The question was, a lot of the insects that we have here seem to be very small, and they live on the undersides of leaves or in the cracks of plants. Yes, most insects are going to be smaller in scale. We have a lot of them. They're scale insects, they're whiteflies, they're aphids. A lot of our common plant pests fall into that category where they want to hide, they want to use their mouth parts to suck the sap from the plant typically. And if you've seen that black sooty mold on plants, that's usually an indicator that you have some of those different insects in that plant. They secrete that honeydew, and then the fungus grows on the honeydew, right? Yep. But yeah, that's a good observation. It's really hard to identify those things even with one of these, right? Typically, if it's something we haven't seen before, we'll bag it up and mail it to campus because they do have an identification service on campus. That's something you guys have access to as well. It's the LSU Arthropod Museum. It's an actual museum you can visit in Baton Rouge. I think you got to make an appointment still with COVID. But that's where our state insect and arthropod collection resides, and you can go through it as citizens of Louisiana, which is pretty cool. Our internet is down, and I'm going to need it, so I'm not going to call IT. All right, other questions? Let me try to restart.
Yeah, disconnect and reconnect.
I did, I tried that. Our internet is down, we're going to need it. Yeah.
So a lot of people are starting to grow milkweed to raise monarchs. There's also concerns about the milkweed bacteria Any tips or strategies for those that are trying to do this?
Yeah, the question was about milkweed and monarchs, and if you guys don't know, the monarchs here get infected with a pathogen called OE, which is an acronym for a much larger protozoan that impacts them. It's transferred almost like an STD with the butterflies. So when that female lands on the milkweed and oviposits her eggs, she's transmitting that pathogen to the leaves. The caterpillars eat the leaves, now they're infected. It's a huge problem because it weakens the adult monarchs to an extent where they can't make it across the Gulf to get to Mexico. It's part of why we have a resident population here in southeast Louisiana. Some of that's due to how much milkweed we as gardeners have planted. We've changed their migration route, which is something we didn't know 20 years ago, but now we know, and it's being studied by Tulane, it's being studied at UFL, a couple other universities. But that OE pathogen is very active in the New Orleans area because of our home gardens. If you are growing milkweed, try to choose one of the native species, and the best one for our area is the aquatic milkweed. You can get that at Pelican, you can get it at Barber Labs out in Harahan. It's hard to find this time of year, but in the fall we should have a lot more of it available to garden centers. Try not to plant the tropical species, and the tropical one's the one with the bright, kind of showy red and yellow and orange flowers. That's what every garden center was telling us to plant up until a couple of years ago. That's like chocolate cake for those monarchs. They prefer that over the native species. They're congregating on it a little bit more, and that OE pathogen becomes even more prevalent. If you have it, you don't need to nuke it with fire though. You can cut it back a couple times a year and it breaks the cycle. So you want to remove all the leaves, cut it down to the ground. We all know it comes right back, right? So that's a good way to break that cycle. Typically you want to do it twice, once in July and again in September. And we cut it in September so that that migratory population that's up in Canada and parts of the northern US, they don't stop and get infected then. They keep going to Mexico, right? They don't need to set up another breeding population that late in the year. We've kind of really messed with their breeding cycle, so we want to make sure we cut our milkweeds in September. That way we get them to go to Mexico. They overwinter, then they come back. And what's great about that native milkweed is it's coinciding perfectly, because nature knows how to do this. When those monarchs come back from Mexico, that's when that native milkweed's like prime and ready to go. So those ones that come back, they lay their eggs here in New Orleans, and then that generation is the one that flies further north and lays another set of eggs. Those hatch. Those ones go further north. So it's like a cycle, you know? And our piece of it is very specific because we're right here on the coast. We're kind of like the last landing pad and then the first stop on their way north. Did that help? The giant milkweed, same problem. You do want to cut that back as well. It's not even botanically a milkweed. It's from South America, and it's one that they will host on, but it can spread that OE as well.
So the milkweed has the OE or the monarch?
Oh, it's a parasite. Oh.
It's not the spores, possible plants that feed an egg, and then the spores right there, as soon as the egg hatches, the pathogen is
So which came first?
It's a cycle. They're mutually dependent. So it's something that we have in this area that is something that's always been here in low amounts, but because we gardeners planted all this milkweed, we made it a bigger problem. And we just found that out like 3 years ago. It's that new. So make sure you cut your milkweeds back a couple times a year, help break that cycle. My thoughts on it personally are the cat's out of the bag. We're not ever going to cut back every milkweed plant in New Orleans, so OE is kind of here to stay. That migratory population is also here to stay. That's what the new research is showing. So they stay here all winter long. I know I get monarchs in my garden in December and January. That didn't used to be the case. They're here year-round. They're breeding year-round too, which is very weird, but we have a lot warmer weather now all year, right? So I'm getting caterpillars in December. Well, we had that late freeze, but we still had caterpillars in my garden in February. And they can take that cold weather. They go into like a stasis, and then as soon as it warms up, they're active again. So it's very weird. We had a part to do with that as gardeners. Yes?
I have a question about the organogenesis. granddaughter aphid is actually developing inside granddaughter. Can you explain that more?
Yeah, I actually just wrote a really good article in Geno Gardening about this with the oleander aphids. Aphids are born pregnant. They're not only born pregnant, they're born with like 2 or 3 generations, almost like those nesting dolls, like the Russian dolls.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it.
Okay.
So they're already in there. It's just a small one with a bigger one and a bigger one.
The oldest one dies.
Well, the oldest one gives birth to the one inside, right? And that one's born pregnant. Yep. It's very weird. And most aphids are females too. It's very female.
Yeah, okay. They're males.
They don't need to mate to reproduce. Yeah. Which is part of why their populations explode so quickly, right? Yep. Yeah, I'm glad you asked about that, because that blows my mind. Yeah. Other questions about insects? Make sure the Wi-Fi is working. Yes. Great. All right, we're in business. Everybody's got their bug sample, right? Did anyone bring a spider or a mollusk? Okay, we got a couple, but most of you have insects, things with 6 legs. Great. I'll focus more on those, and then those of you that brought spiders, I'll show you the spider feet, okay? All right, we're gonna pull out our worksheet, and then I've also got this list of web resources. Most of us have a smartphone in our back pocket, right? So we're gonna use some of these as well as our dichotomous keys. I have several copies of these on each table. This pictorial guide to the order of adult insects. This is a really good visual tool. I would start here and try to get your insect sample down to the order. That's one of the first questions on your worksheet. But then I gave you guys this list of resources because as an Ag Center agent, this is my cheat sheet. I didn't take an entomology class till like 2 years ago, even as a horticulturalist. It's not required. These websites are kind of my go-to, as well as those reference books when people bring me a sample.
I have iNaturalist.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's look at the iNaturalist first. That's one where you can create an account for free. It's a really great tool. So if you know the order of your insect, if you can at least get it down to the order, you can go to Explore, and then in the species you put something like, let's see, you pick one at random. Orthoptera. So the order Orthoptera, grasshoppers, crickets, and katydids, right? And then for location, you just put Louisiana, USA. Good to go. And then you get a pictorial library of all of them. And for me, I'm a visual person. That's how I prefer to learn. So if I have a sample in front of me that's applied right in, and I can visually compare, I usually start with iNaturalist, and I would say 95% of the time it gives me my answer of what it is. It's a fabulous resource. It's a citizen science-led project. So once you create an account, you can be photographing things. You send in the photo with what you think it is, but then it's verified by a researcher, which is awesome. So once it makes it to this page, it is a research grade or a verified photo representation of that species. So we know for sure it is what it says. That's why I like it. And also a couple of years ago, this project got approved as Master Gardener Volunteer Hours. So if you're really into cataloging things like this digitally, you can do that and you add to the scientific community consensus and you get all these wonderful visual resources available to the public. That's something Dr. Shields approved. And if anyone in here is a Master Naturalist, I believe that organization also approved it. So this is a great tool. Who's on iNaturalist already? Okay, so about half of you, that's great. If you're not on it, it's very simple to set up an account, so I would start there once you've got your order of insects kind of nailed down and see what you can get to from there. The other one I really like is Bug Guide. And why I like the Bug Guide, it's very user-friendly. On this left panel, there's a clickable guide, right? So I get something and I know it's a dragonfly, I can click on the dragonfly. It takes me to the sub-order, and then I can kind of click through it in terms of if I know its identification. It gives me a lot of info. It's got an images tab as well, similar to iNaturalist. And with this, you kind of have to have the sample in front of you too. It's not as user-friendly to me, but if you say, oh, it kind of looks like that one, you can click it, gives you a close-up, it tells you where it was from. So that's a good way of narrowing it down as well. I like it especially for the millipedes and centipedes. iNaturalist has them as well, but I found Bug Guide to be pretty easy to navigate through those. Mantids. So yeah, you can really nerd out on this. They even have a tab called Frass. Who knows what Frass is? They talk about that in the manual. Frass is a fancy word for bug food. So if you cannot see the pest in your garden, but you see what it left behind and you see its poop, they have identification resources for the frass. So you click on.
If you study that, you're called scatologist.
Scatologist. Frass is insect debris. So if we get anything left behind, you're going to have to click through it, but that's a pretty interesting one. They have a site for ID requests too. You can add it to the page and an entomologist will look at it. The other one is insectidentification.org. This is another great free one. It's billed as for the casual observer. When I'm teaching bugs to kids, use this website because it's very easy and visual to navigate as well. I will say it does not have everything. It's not as comprehensive as the iNaturalist site or the Bug Guide site, but they do have it pretty user-friendly, so you can search by state, you can know the order again, you can go through that, and then it has all bugs. It also has spiders, so those of you that brought spiders, I would start with insectidentification.org. Spiders are not insects though, right? What are they? Arachnids. Arachnids, right? 8 legs instead of 6. But this spider guide is pretty excellent. And they've got all 34,000 species on there. So you can kind of narrow it down. Okay, the last one I want to show you is caterpillaridentification.org. You brought in a caterpillar. This is a really good site for caterpillars. There's also another one listed, the discoverlife.org/caterpillar site. That one is less comprehensive than this one, the caterpillaridentification.org. You can search all caterpillars. You can do it by state. That's usually how I start. This is a fantastic resource. But again, it does not have every caterpillar, but it does have most of them mostly. So I know a couple of you brought caterpillars in. I would start on this side. Okay? So with that, using the resources on the table to get down to the order, so that's your pictorial keys and these web resources. We'll be walking around helping you guys through it, but try to ID your insect and answer the questions on the worksheet. And then before we take our break and switch gears, we're going to do a little show and tell, because everybody wants to show off their bug, right? Yes. Tweezers. We should have some tweezers in here somewhere. We can look for them. Yep. Okay. Any questions other than tweezers? All right. Good luck, because this is literally how it works. We don't know every bug, but this is how we find the answer. So you guys get to see it.
creature found on Charlotte's Neck.
Yeah.
Golly. So I really don't know where the planting is on. Don't know. I seem interested in eating this leaf.
You got yours? Okay. If you didn't get all the way through, but do you at least know the order, or you narrowed it down a little? Everybody's been able to do that?
Yes.
Okay, that's a really good first step. When people bring us samples, that's half the battle. Okay, and you saw how you were able to use some of the resources. Was iNaturalist a good one for folks? Okay. Yeah, I find that visual comparison is really key because we don't always have this with us, right? We don't always have access to a microscope. If these samples were sent into campus, that's what they would be doing. They would be looking. They'd be counting the hairs, counting the spots, looking at all the little structures on the body of those insects. We as gardeners, we can kind of cheat a little. So we're going to go around the room real quick and show what you brought, or tell us what you brought if it's real small, and a little bit about it. Sound good? Kind of like a show and tell, and then at the end of class or at the break, you guys can walk around and take a look. So let's start at this table.
Well, I brought this leaf that was been eaten on, and last night I identified it as a leaf beetle, but he's missing. So this guy came in on her neck, and he is an armyworm, right? And he is not beneficial. Armyworm moth, he turns into a moth. But no, he's not beneficial to the garden. He will destroy turf and other plants. He'll eat voraciously. Okay. And he's in Insecta?
He's an insect, yeah, but can you get it down to order?
Lepidoptera.
Lepidopterans, yep.
Lepidoptera.
Okay, next. Yeah, we can pick one because I know you brought multiple.
I have what we think is the harlequin bug. I don't have my phones on me. And it is insect. It's found on cabbage, kale, broccoli is where I saw them. Does lots of damage. It's a Hemithera, and I think it's a harlequin.
It's definitely a harlequin though, so you were able to get it.
And we have its eggs, which are probably the coolest part.
Yeah, if you guys get a chance with your hand lens, come take a look at these eggs. They're very brightly striped, black and white, and they're very distinctive. So that's something you can take a look at. That's really awesome.
Yeah. I brought in a cockroach. I found out it's named the American cockroach, so like, wow, really? Found this on 4th of July. It was represented. It's an insectita, and its order is, it's the B one, Blacktoda, which means it's an ally in my garden, but a pest inside. You mainly find this around like dead wood or dead leaves. It chews on it, and that's why you might find this in my garden. I don't know. I find this near my garbage, and also in the woods. So good to have outside, not inside.
I brought in this caterpillar that has been munching on my passion flower vine for a couple months now. And it's the hortensia caterpillar, which turns into the variegated fritillary butterfly, which I guess is beneficial in that it's a pollinator, and it's slightly detrimental to my passion flower, but I've kind of just let them take over, and they seem to be on their way out. So yes, it's kind of like a very red and spiny caterpillar.
Awesome.
So I brought in the juniper twig geometer moth caterpillar.
This is a really awesome caterpillar, guys. Come take a look at it.
Actually found them on the just the lawn furniture next to a twig, and looking at it, I say to my partner, I'm like, is that a caterpillar or is that a twig? Because it was my mind playing tricks on me, and we kind of poked at it a little bit and saw that it was one, and it's like, grab my specimen jar. And so This is how we have fun at home. I'm not kidding, but yeah. It's juniper twig geometer moth. He's got a big name. And yeah, he looks kind of creepy, but yeah, pretty cool.
That's a
Check
good
him
one.
out. And yeah, definitely Lepidoptera.
Lepidoptera, yep.
And it can be detrimental to the juniper, white cedar, and pine, but if they're just having a little bit of it, it's not a big problem unless you get a huge imbalance and infestation of your trees.
Yep. Thank you.
This is a pecan phylloxera. It's like a aphid-like bug that curls itself up inside the gall, and it's detrimental to a plant. It attacks shoots, leaves, and the fruit of your pecan trees. It is a hemiptera. Yep, that's what it is.
All right. I brought an eastern leaf-footed bug. And this and all of its younger nymphs here are all on my tomato plant, which is no longer has any leaves on it. So it's hemiptera, and it's detrimental.
Yep.
I brought in a beetle that I found. I've been seeing quite a few of these, like in my driveway, in my walkways, in my garden. And it's called the June beetle. And the interesting thing about the June beetle is that it's the grubs from the beetle. It lays eggs in the soil, and it's the grubs that come up and eats the roots of the plant. And so that's how it's detrimental to the plants. And then later they go back down and they come back up again, and then the beetles are formed, and then the beetles will come out. And so I don't really think it's the beetle itself that is a detriment to the plant, but the grub.
Thank you. That's a great one.
Okay, I brought, and it's here. It is Spartocera fusca, and that's, I found it on my tomato plant when I was pulling it out of the container that it was in, and they suck sap out of whatever they're on. And while they're somewhat detrimental, they really don't, they're not terrible unless you have a huge infestation. So this particular tomato plant did not produce a lot of fruit, so I don't know if that was part of the reason.
It could be.
Okay.
Great. Over here, Vanessa.
They're really pretty.
Yeah, they're
Okay. I brought in a short earwig. In the Dermatera family, right? Okay, so I grew up calling them stink bugs, and of course it's not a stink bug, but what they do, they emit a foul odor when they're threatened. So I guess that's why I grew up calling them that, but that's not what they are. They're the pinchers on the, they'll probably all have seen them. And they eat dead and decaying vegetation and occasionally plants, so they're not really a bad thing to have around.
I have a centipede, a millipede. It's got 2 legs per segment, hence the millipede. And it was found in the creeping fig on my front steps. We have a lot of them this year, apparently. Beyond saying it was found in Louisiana, I don't know what kind of millipede it is. He's still alive.
Still alive.
Yeah, I just this morning.
Is he detrimental or beneficial?
Well, in my garden, he's not a problem. But I don't have lawn, so apparently these guys can hurt lawns.
They sometimes can in large populations, but they generally are kind of nature's cleanup crew.
There we go. Not bothering my
So
garden
either way.
at all.
Yeah. Great. Ralph?
I collected a whole lot of tiny caterpillars from under a leaf on the canna lily, and I'm not sure exactly which caterpillar it is yet.
Yeah, Ralph collected what's a first instar caterpillar, and they're extremely hard to identify. And if you get a chance, come look at them with your hand lens, because they're so small. They're maybe like a 1/16 of an inch long. So with those, we would generally say, well, let's let them grow a little, and then we can narrow it down. But is this a pest or beneficial?
The caterpillar stage is a pest, certainly eating the leaves. If it turns into a butterfly, then of course it's beneficial because it pollinates.
Yep, so it could go either way. Debbie?
I picked this morning, actually. These are from earlier, but obviously this is a pest.
Yep.
And I think it's some sort of a mite. It's so tiny that I can't see it very well, even with this. But I think obviously it's destructive and it's eating the thing. There's going to be nothing left soon. And we want to get rid of this.
Yeah. Is it a sweet potato leaf?
Yes, it is.
Okay. With those, they're so small, you might want to look up flea beetle.
Flea beetles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Were they jumping around a little?
I didn't see anything jumping.
Okay. Yeah,
But it was early.
They jumped ship already. But
Okay,
if
flea
you want to
beetles.
investigate it further, that's what I would start looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And they're really bad right now at eggplant too. Okay. Back to the table. Here, we'll start with Joe.
I brought a sample of I think it's T-scale, which is on a sasanqua bush, which has been a chronic problem for my camellias and sasanquas. They're definitely detrimental. It's in the Hemifera family. I don't really have it classified much further than that. It's on the underside, and it's a scaly kind of looking insect that sucks on the leaves and then discolors the upper leaf, but it's on the underside of the leaf.
Definitely a pest. We have another scale insect right next to it.
Yes, I have a scale insect also. And the insect is, well, I noticed them really when I was watering the plant yesterday. I said, oh goodness, and it's very, it's detrimental because it's going from one leaf to the other. And there's 2 plants there, and I gotta check it because it's probably gonna go next door if I'm not if I don't spray it or something. It's in a Hemiptera family, and it is detrimental. It's a chapelaire is what it is. One of the a variety of the chapelaires, and it is some kind of scale. And of course, the insect that's on the back is because he's sucking on it and eating it. He's also causing taking the life out of it. I have the black powdery like a milky too.
Yeah, if you guys can catch that, this is a good leaf to look at for black sooty mold. If you want to see what it looks like when the scale insect, the white flies, and the aphids feed, they're secreting that honeydew, right? And then that secondary fungal infection takes place with the black sooty mold, and that's a really good example because you can see the whole thing kind of on one leaf.
So I brought an insect, a large insect, a wasp, specifically a mud wasp. This one, there's a bunch of mud wasps. This one is a yellow and black mud wasp. And as per the name, it's got a black body and yellow legs, so it's pretty easy to identify. If you don't get up close to it, the other way to identify it is probably by the nest. You probably have them around your house. It looks like a little ball of mud, dried, stuck somewhere in a protected area around the house. The other wasp you might have would be a paper wasp, which in their nest looks totally different, like a little piece of honeycomb made out of paper. And the mud wasps don't sting, so they won't hurt you unless you try and capture it or threaten it. But versus the paper wasp, which do have nasty stings, and they're kind of neutral in the garden. They eat nectar of flowers. They also eat spiders. They don't damage the plants. I think that's about it.
Perfect.
This was a beetle from the Cleopatra family.
Yep.
All right, and our local one is the Southern Mass Schaefer, and he's harmless. The babies feed on the roots of grass and could destroy the grass, but once they mature, harmless. and it was brown and about maybe a half an inch, but he's falling apart with me. Yeah.
Thank you.
I also have a beetle, and it is either the same one, the southern mouse shaver beetle, or a grapevine beetle. And I say that because I can't tell them apart, and I have a lot of grapevine in the area that I collected it from.
That could be.
If it's a grapevine beetle, it seemed kind of neutral, like kind of harmless. And the other one, the grub situation.
I'm willing to bet it's a grapevine one. Back here?
Okay, I also have Spartacera fusca. I've got nymph stages, so you look like you've got more of the adult one. Yeah, they're really cool looking when they're little. They're like bright orange, the smaller one's bright. Like walking through the garden, it was kind of a sight, the bright green leaves, and then I had a little bit of an infestation going on my potato plants, so the contrast was kind of neat, and collected 2 of them very easily. We'll probably be double checking my tomatoes after class, because I heard they like eating those too, and those are the next bed over from the potatoes, so I'm gonna get that in control now that I know that they are detrimental. They're not doing me any favors besides a little pop of orange color in the garden. Yeah, it looks like as they get older, they kind of lose their color a little bit, but are still kind of interesting looking. And then Anna mentioned that some people have been calling them the Spartacus bug. And I think that's just a shortened term of the scientific name. They're not, well, there were enough of them, they could be building chariots by the time I get out of class, so wish me luck.
Thank you. All right, mine's really tiny, so I'm not going to show it, but I think it's in the Coleoptera, so it's a type of beetle, and it's a margined leatherwing beetle, and it's like black with a little orange, like kind of around the wings, and a little bit of orange on the top of it. And it's beneficial, it's a pollinator, because I found it on my sunflowers. They were just crawling on top of the sunflower. And they also prey on like pest insects, because I've seen them, I think, like where aphids are, kind of eating aphids too. So I've got tons of them. They like fly around everywhere, but they don't harm anything. So, very cool.
All right, I have a paper wasp, which is in the Hymenoptera order, I believe female, based on the ratio of red and black on the body. As far as is it beneficial or not, it kind of depends on what your goal is. They help control caterpillar population. They feed on soft body caterpillars, so if you're trying to control those, that would be good. If you're trying to raise caterpillars, not so good. They also like to attack the gardener, which is not a good thing, and they do hurt quite a bit, so we are even now. So we're back on good terms.
Thanks, Chris. Cody?
I brought in a narrow-winged cricket, and it is in the Orthopteryx family. I found him near the butterfly garden, underneath the hummingbird feeders, but what is nice, well not nice because he's dead, but I found his food source at another place, at the pelican place, and it is a yellow aphid, and I thought they were cute, but they eat at the plant, basically, like they suck up the nutrients and stuff. So, yeah.
Detrimental.
Detrimental.
Thanks, Rose.
I have a soil centipede. It's an arthropod. I found it in my raised garden bed. It's kind of small. The order is Geophilomorpha. And it's good and bad depending on what it eats. It eats insect larvae and earthworms, but it's not bothering me. So it's good in my garden.
All right. So that's a pretty good diversity of samples, right? And it sounds like everybody was at least able to work through those basic questions and get through. All right. On your table, on the crawfish trays, we have a set of 5 samples. That's your second half of that worksheet. It shouldn't take you very long to work your way through those, but do your best and kind of work in teams to identify those samples as well. Number 1, a couple of you brought that in. What was it? What order of insect? Hemiptera.
Hemiptera.
You got it. What kind of mouth parts does that insect have? You should have been able to see them. Piercing, sucking. That's right. And look at the smaller insect in the sample. Most of these don't have their wings, right? Because they're young instars. What kind of metamorphosis does the leaf-footed bug go through? Gradual, that's right, gradual metamorphosis. The nymphs look like small versions of the adult and they don't get their wings until they hit maturity, right? So that's the leaf-footed bug. All right, sample number 2, the woolly aphids. Hopefully nobody opened the bags. What family does that insect belong to? The family. They're hemipterans, yep. Aphididae. Aphididae. Yep, what kind of mouth parts do woolly aphids and all aphids have? Sucking, right? They're like straws. What material and part of the plant do they feed upon? The sap, which comes out of the, anyone get that far? Phloem, yep. Remembering your botany, the phloem. What's one product you could use to control the woolly aphid infestations? Neem oil, what else? Anyone get anything else?
Removed by hand.
Removed by hand, what about insecticidal soap? What is it? Ladybugs, yep. And these were on phlox plants in the butterfly garden, and there were actually already lady beetle larvae that were starting to get in there and take care of them. So if you get these infestations like that, don't freak out, don't reach for the soap or the neem immediately. Give it some time, your beneficials might clear them out for you. Okay, sample number 3. What are some descriptive words to describe that leaf? Leaf miners, but squiggly damage, maybe cracked, rolled, contorted leaves, right? What I wanted to make the point with this question is, if somebody brings something into our offices and we don't know what it is, first thing I do is I start thinking about how I would describe it. And from that, you sort of get your key terms kind of built up and you can do a search from there. That's the beauty of the internet. It's a lot easier than trying to key everything out. That takes a lot of time. We don't always have hours and hours to key something out, right? So using that descriptive kind of verbiage works really great. Was the pest visible to the naked eye? No, right, because they're in there. What pest is it? Citrus leaf miner, I heard that already. What part of the leaf is it feeding within? Keyword is within. Mesophyll, right. You guys remember when Paula talked about the leaf structure, she had that really good cross section. Right. We talked about where the leaf miners are. They're in that spongy middle part, so that's why they're so hard to control. All right, sample number 4, termite versus ant. This is a very common question you'll get from friends, neighbors, relatives, especially right around Mother's Day, right? Because what happens around Mother's Day?
Swarming.
Swarm season, yeah. So these are some good tricks to tell the ants apart from the termites, because ants will actually swarm also. They have winged reproductives too. So a lot of times people get them confused, and it's a big deal. Ants are a little less worrying, right, if you're a homeowner. But if you got termites, you might want to think about some control methods. A, what shape antenna does this insect have? Bead-like, that's right, yep. They're kind of hard to see, but they're definitely like strings of Mardi Gras beads almost. Yep. Does this insect have 3 distinct segments and a thin waist?
It was hard to see.
It's hard to see, but it's not a narrow waist, right?
Right.
It kind of moves from the shoulder into the abdomen and the thorax, right? So I would say no. Does it have wings, making it an elite of the species?
I didn't see any.
They might have fallen off in there. Yeah. So yes for some of you, no for others. Using your ID tools and searches, is this an ant or a termite? Termite, right? And this is specifically the Formosan termite. There are other kinds of termites in the area. They're a little less common because they don't build quite so large infestations up. Drywood termites, subterranean, right?
Native subterranean.
Native subterranean. Right. Yep. So knowing your termites apart from your ants is a good thing to know, especially as master gardeners. Sample number 5 was kind of fun, right? These are bean leaves. Was there a larva present? No. Did you open it up and look? No. Yes? Who found the larva? Okay. Yep. Great. Using the search term leaf roller and beans, what did you find out?
Urbanus proteus.
Urbanus proteus, which is also long-tailed skipper butterfly, right? And I've actually got one in that little wooden box that's open. I can point it out at the end of class if you want to see what the adult looks like. Beautiful little butterfly. Is it a pest or a beneficial?
Beneficial. Both.
Both. I would argue both. In a home garden setting, they usually don't do enough damage to really freak out about. But if you are a soybean farmer, would you want these guys in your crop? No. Probably not, right? So both. What are some products used to control this insect? How about organic options? 7. Yep. What else? Natural predators. Yep. So
paper wasps.
Yep, the paper wasps and the mud daubing wasps and stuff that you guys brought in. They love these guys. What are some other things you could use to control it, conventional or organic? What about spinosad, maybe BT? Anyone see that in your search? Yep. So caterpillar control, self-bedding caterpillars, those are some good products to reach for. Okay, then take a little...
Considered organic?
It is, yes.
Oh, wow.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, so if you need to use the restroom, grab a bottle. Formulated for plants. It's organic, and it works on this guys. You can try that too. So,
my mom is probably in the middle of his uniform camp right now. I know, we live in the speak. That's thank you.
insecticidal for and you can get it in a concentrate.
Got it. So now that I've just got plant skin look,
Put them in the grass.
pepper. Okay, so they're actually
Insect species are actually detrimental in our garden, but there are some, right? So we want to know how to control them properly. We've talked a little bit with this lab about beneficial predators, things like that, using organic controls. You always want to start with the least toxic options and then work your way down the war chest, so to speak, right? Chris is going to explain a little bit more about what that means, using your least toxic option. This is a really good part of IPM. We've been talking about that for the whole class as well. And with that, we're going to turn it over to Chris.
All right, thank you. Do we need the lights down or up? Here we go. All right. So yes, thank you very much. So, you know, this is a topic that a lot of our master gardeners don't like to talk about because they think that all pesticides are bad and they want to just lump everything into one category. But, you know, there's a whole lot to what pesticides are, and, you know, you actually have to defeat any enemy. If you do think pesticides are your enemy, it's all the more reason for you to pay attention and study them, because you always want to study your enemy more than your friends if you want to learn how to defeat them. So you definitely need to know how to deal with pesticides. Because quite frankly, homeowners are the worst abusers of pesticides out there. We all want to talk about farmers, and we think these pest control operators must be crazy. And what are they doing driving around killing mosquitoes like that and just spraying toxins into the air? Well, all those people have gone to school and taken classes, and it doesn't behoove them to use all this extra chemical because it's very expensive. Now, homeowners, on the other hand, always the mindset is, if a little is good, a lot must be better, right? And homeowners are always the ones that are doing this thing. And lawns, let's just face it, are one of the biggest sources of pollution, because that's the #1 destination for homeowner products. And we're going to talk about all this rain. You know, every single thing that lands on the ground, it eventually gets picked up and moved somewhere else if it's not used right. So there's a couple of things that you need to do. There's a few steps that you want to take. And the entomology class was all part of this. It correctly identify the pest or the issue or whatever it is. You have to make sure that you know what you're dealing with before you can fight against it. There's no way that you can put up any kind of defense that's going to work if you don't even know what your enemy is. So this is a perfect example. This is a house I went to recently. They had, like, what's wrong with my lawn right here? Why is there a dead spot right here? And they had already, by the time I showed up, put down fungicides because they thought they had brown patch disease. They had already put down insecticides because they thought they had mole crickets or cheech bugs or something like that. And look at right there, that's a drain that goes into the ditch, but the ditch goes into the bayou, and the bayou goes into the next step. Well, I took my little shovel, I went out and dug down, and just below that grass was basically the road. I mean, it was shell and hard pack and that bric-a-brac stuff. There's no way in the world that that grass is going to grow without like major inputs. You basically have to set up a sprinkler just for this one little area because it's going to dry out so fast. But that's what was wrong with that area. No pests, no disease, just common sense. They need to get some soil underneath there. So this is just a classic example. This is in Luling. That's that beautiful bridge right there. So you know the Mississippi River is what is right there. That's how close the Mississippi River is. So, like Anna said, you know, use the least toxic option available, and that's not just but for the target insect, but also your beneficial insects. You know, you don't want to use something that's going to kill the aphids, but it's also going to wipe out their caterpillar population and kill all the bees and things like that. So look at not only what it kills, but also what else it can damage. So here's a little test for you guys. So anybody know the pesticide signal words in the order of toxicity? Caution, there you go. Danger, you're going, you got one person working from the top down, one person from the bottom up. So here we go. Danger, warning, and caution, or caution, warning, danger, depends on where you go. But we really want to look for things that have that caution word. And the word caution appears on pesticides that are the least harmful to you. They don't really care about the rest of the world, it's mainly about you. But warning is a pesticide, but the word warning is more poisonous than the caution label, and then danger is very poisonous or irritating. They should be used with extreme care because they can severely burn you, your skin and eyes. So it's very dangerous. Not just to kill you, but also just like maim you and make you blind, all these good things. So try to go with the least toxic options available. And step 3 is read the label. You have to read the label of all these products. I mean, it's federal law to follow the label directions. Anytime that you deviate from the label directions in your application, you're breaking like U.S. federal law. Big deal. So you want to make sure you know that the target pest is on there. You want to know what equipment to use. You're going to want to know when to apply it, where to apply it, all these things. It's better to read the label before you even get it. You know, just make sure you got everything that you need. Step 4, no really. You need to read the label on any pesticide you're going to use. Not really. You actually have to read it. The whole. It's like, oh yeah, come on guys. I'm super serial. You need to read the whole thing. You can't just stop at like the part that you like. You have to read the whole thing because I'll show you in a minute. These things were not written by English scholars. They were not written by people who never necessarily had any common sense. They certainly weren't written by people who have a deep understanding of like, just, I don't know, like the way things should be written and maybe like emphasis on what's important. Oh, and you should probably read the SDS sheet also. Yeah, that's the safety data sheet. Just because not everything's on the label. Oh, and then the step 7, you actually have to follow the label directions. This is important. You actually have to do what it says. Now, the good thing is that all these pesticides were theoretically tested in the field against the pests that you're trying to kill. And they figured it out. I mean, after I did part of these studies, they know exactly how much it needs to kill the pest for how long. Any less, and you might cause yourself a problem because you don't take out all of the population, and then there's enough population there to come back with a surge or something like that. If you use too much, you might actually kill part of the population too fast, so that it doesn't get to spread and affect the others, or it might just become a repellent at some point and chase them away. So make sure you follow those label directions. And then let's just look at some examples here. So this is all seasons horticulture spray oil. This is one of the safest things you can use, right? It's active ingredient. You know, all these things are on the label, required by federal law to be on the label. So they have to have the name, the company, they have to have the signal word, they have to have the ingredients. So you can see this is 98% mineral oil. And then it's got 2% some other ingredients. Now, it says here on the front, it says do not apply when temperature is greater than 90 degrees Fahrenheit or less than 40. So they kind of they're hiding this information in certain places. But that's really important, that little piece of information right there. Because basically, you're putting cooking oil on your plant. And when the sun hits that cooking oil, it will fry the plant. Crispy good. But this is still a pesticide, and it's mineral oil. Mineral oil, I looked it up just now. Mineral oil is great for dry skin. You can just rub it right in. You can put it in your ear to loosen up earwax. You can put it on a baby's butt for diaper rash. It's even, because it's got such lubricating properties, it's good for constipation. So you can swallow it, or go the other way. But apparently it makes everything slide nice and easy. So just saying that, okay, mineral oil is safe, and yet here it is, a cautionary word, keep out of reach of children, what's going on? Well, we don't really know what those other ingredients are. You know, it might be the one thing that you don't want to eat to make your constipation go away. So just make sure you get the right product. Get medical grade mineral oil if you get dry skin or something. Get this if you got some AIDS. So this is just going on into the label, and it says, 3-in-1 product provides protection against insects, mites, and diseases listed on this label. Oh, by the way, this is cool. By the way, I didn't point that out. Kills by smothering. But this is not even like a toxin that we think of. It's not some nerve agent or something like that goes in. It's just going to smother these insects. So this just kind of describes what it is. It's a self-emulsifying spray. It's got so it's paraffinic oil in there, so it's got a little bit extra to help it spread out and stick, which is really nice, because what you're trying to do is get that to spread out and stick all over the insect that you're trying to kill. Then it tells you it kills these things, even some powdery mildew and things like that. And then again, once again, it's got, do not apply when temperature is greater than 90, and then store in upright position. So all this kind of information can sometimes be hidden in there. If you don't read the whole thing, you might miss something important. The next page, it goes on and it says, do not apply this product in any way that will contact other persons, pets, or either directly or through drift. Keep other persons out of the treated area during applications. Do not allow persons and pets to enter the treated area until sprays are dried. That's a pretty common language. If you're putting out these, even fertilizers in your lawn, you don't really want to go out on them until they've been watered in. But drift is important. We're going to talk about drift in a little bit. That's when the wind blows your product around. You have a question again?
So on the previous slide, it said that it treats all of these bugs on a specific types of peaches, cherries, and things. If it's like the kill scale of peaches, could I use it on tomatoes and the tomatoes aren't listed, or should I only use it for what it says that I'm supposed to use it on?
So you're asking about if it's the product doesn't have the pest on there specifically?
What has the pest that doesn't have the plant?
You always want to go with, it's like the target, the location, as long as the location is on the label, you can usually use it, even if the pest isn't on there. But you don't really want to go the other way around, because you don't want to put the product on something that is sensitive to it and it'll kill the plant. So you can actually treat a plant because they don't want to make everybody criminals. They're saying as long as you're using it responsibly in the place that it's supposed to, just because you got the wrong insect, you know, they don't want to put you in jail. If they say, I was treating for that, then those people are not going to be in trouble, but these other people will, if they told the truth. But it's not so much that, it's just being responsible. But you want to make sure the way is best to make sure the pest is there, because just using a product doesn't guarantee that you're going to harm this pest at all, you see. So like, wood treatments and things like that don't necessarily work against like the carpenter bees, because they don't even eat the product. They don't eat the wood. So it doesn't really hurt. So, now here it goes again. You got all caps, and if you've done anything with the ADA for compliance, that's against ADA rules. You can't even have a sentence with all caps in it, because the electronic reader doesn't know how to use it. But here it is. Do not apply seasoned horticultural oil or dormant spray with sulfur sprays is on the foliage. So this is, this is probably something that we're not necessarily going to deal with, but you got to watch out. You're going to get this weird reaction between the sulfur and the oil, which causes some kind of gas to come up. But again, hidden down below all that is again, do not apply all-season horticulture and dormant spray oil at abnormal temperatures above 90 degrees, or when the plants are dry, they're wanting for moisture. So not only it's got the temperature thing on there, but now it's got this extra thing about not doing it when it's suffering from water. So, and anybody think that 90 degrees is abnormal? No, it's pretty dang normal for us. Blah, blah, blah. This one goes into like something about like bud stage, which, unless you're dealing with the peach trees and stuff, you're not even worried about. This is important, shake well. Shake everything. All these chemicals, a lot of times, there'll only be 2% active ingredient and 98% inert ingredients. You got to really make sure that you shake it up to make sure that that product is well distributed, and when you mix it in your tank mix, likewise, very well mixed. It says, and here's really good, this is like, this little paragraph is like the best information you have on actually how to apply. It says, use a good pressure spray and apply enough liquid per tree to wet the entire surface of the branches, main limbs, and trunk. Give special attention to underside of the limbs, and leaves too for that matter, and make application when temperature is above 40 degrees. So, like the azalea question somebody brought in, with the, and you were talking about these little bugs. Yeah, they all are underneath the leaves. If you're looking at a plant, I wonder what's wrong with it. As soon as you take the slightest effort to flip that leaf over, you're going to see a whole world. Check out the azalea lace bug. It's one of the loveliest little things out there. It's got these little stained glass window-like wings, but they're pretty bad for your azaleas. Now, this is what you were asking about, kind of like where and what to kill. This thing has like 25 pages of table like this. Now, by the way, I'm going to write an article pretty soon about this this Barbados cherry. This is one of our new fruits that we can grow here in the area. It's a nice little tree. I've got mine in a container. It makes these bright red berries. They're not quite a cherry, but they're pretty good. But if I had aphids, mites, beetles, larvae, leaf miners, thrips, blah, 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 I could use 2 to 4 tablespoons of oil per gallon of water, spray once or twice weekly, depending on the rapid growth and vector pressure. So the more bugs, the more I'm going to have to spray. And apparently you can't use this in California. So almonds, it goes on. So you're just going to keep going down the list and try to find the crop you're dealing with. I mean, here's kind of everything else. a lot of our horticulture crops. And then the pest, white flies, gummy stem, and then telling you how to do it. So everything that you need to know is right there in your leaflet. And it goes on, this is actually a whole section of background. It was actually, right before this, there was more tables, but it was in greenhouses instead of in the field, and it had some more directions. But all these, at the very end of the labels, you finally get to this, and you get your storage and disposal. So it says, do not contaminate water, food, or feed by storage or disposal. So you don't put your pesticide in your pantry, especially not on the top shelf. Store and transport in an upright position. Keep container tightly closed to prevent evaporation. Do not use, pour, spill, or store near heat or open flame. I mean, it is oil after all. Store in a cool, dry place, inaccessible to children or pets. That's going to come up in a minute. Cool, dry place is important. Pesticide disposal. If partly filled, call your local solid waste agency or disposal for instructions. Never place unused product down any indoor or outdoor drain. Container disposal. Empty, non-refillable container. Do not reuse or refill this container. Place in trash or other recycle. Usually the potato, the truffle rinse and puncture. But this is important. This pesticide disposal. I'm going to talk about this in a second. Even partly filled tank mixes is a toxic substance. What are you going to do with that? You've got to dispose of it. If you mix up 2 gallons of this thing and you only use a gallon, then you're going to have to call your pesticide disposal unit and get an overpack container, and then they're going to come and take it away and put it in a landfill. Don't do that. That is what's going to happen, but that's not good. I'll talk about it. They always have the first aid instructions. It's really important. You should read the first aid instructions before you need them. So you're going to want to have the product container, the number, but here it says if it gets in your eyes, hold eye open and rinse slowly and gently for 15 to 20 minutes. Remove contact lenses, flush. Continue rinsing. Call a doctor. So it says this product contains petroleum distillates and may pose an aspiration pneumonia problem. So this is a special note. And there's also this precautionary statement that goes on. They all have this. Precautionary statements hazardous to humans and domestic animals. If there were no hazards that would still be there, it would just say no known hazards. But it says caution, causes moderate eye irritation. Avoid contact with eyes or clothing. Wash thoroughly with soap and water after handling and before eating, drinking, chewing gum, and using tobacco. Wear a long-sleeve shirt, long pants, shoes, socks, and waterproof gloves when using and handling this product. So there's, even on mineral oil, which you can theoretically rub into your skin, you still want to wear your PPE and take care of it. So it goes on to say, it's hazardous fish, don't let it run into storm drains and things like that. Apply this product in calm weather when rain is not predicted for the next 24 hours. That's great. Again, I just wrote an article on stormwater management, and the previous article I wrote in my lawn series was on soil compaction, and both of those articles, I mentioned that anything that you put on the ground, if not done responsibly, can get picked up by rain as runoff and go straight into the ditch, straight into the Bayou St. John, straight into Lake Michigan. And that's not good. The EPA actually considers city rain runoff as a toxic substance. Of rinsing application equipment, what runoff product is, and apply this product only as directed by the board. So, be aware that all these things are there. Now let's move on to something that's different. Let's go to another category. All right, so you're like, horticulture, like mineral oil. I'm not worried about that. I'm bathing that stuff. Okay, well, let's get a little more serious. What's the caution word on this one? Yell it out, danger! And what was that? The highest one, right? Yeah, dairy poisons. All right, so let's get a little into it a little bit more. So it's got the name, manufacturer's danger. So it's got all your ingredients. It's called Trimac because it's got 3 active ingredients, and it's got 60% inert ingredients. Keep from freezing. So why is it so bad? And now this is what is this product for? Lawn care.
Oh my God.
This is for lawn care. This is something you're going to put out on your grass so you won't have any weeds growing in your grass. This is something you might go pick up. This is something your neighbors might put down. This is something that you might have in your garage right now. But it's got a danger warning label on it, and it says danger. Hazards to humans and the domestic animal, corrosive, causes irreversible eye damage. That means if you get it in your eye, you could go blind and you're going to stay blind. Do not get in eyes, on the skin, or on your clothing. Harmful if absorbed through the skin, harmful if swallowed. Yikes. Okay. Holy moly. So you want to have your personal protective equipment, and they've got different categories and stuff. So they've got, they're even telling you that like rubber gloves, your natural rubber gloves are the best. But if you're an applicator or other handler, you're going to need to wear a long sleeve shirt, long pants, shoes and socks, chemical resistant gloves. The applicators may choose not to wear protective eyewear with dilution rates greater than 5:1 or greater than 5 parts water. So they're saying once it's mixed, you don't even need glasses, you don't want. But if you're a mixer, you're supposed to wear protective eyewear and the long sleeve shirts and all that, and an apron as well. So different exposure times is important. So this is the mixers and loaders. That's even somebody cleaning up the mess afterwards, by the way. So just a few things that were on there that I thought were interesting. It says follow manufacturer's instructions for cleaning, maintaining the personal protective equipment. If no such instructions for washables exist, use detergent and hot water. Keep and wash PPE separately from other laundry. Discard clothing and other absorbent material that have been drenched or heavily contaminated with the product's concentrate. Do not reuse them. Does anybody remember Petticoat Junction, like the TV show back in the day? There was one of the girls got married to a fellow who was an aerial applicator. I had no idea. Right? Steve, good looking Steve, right? Big farmer guy. So they had a baby, and every day Steve would come in from work and he would try to pick up the baby, and the baby would start crying and fussing. And the baby doesn't like Steve. Well, they found out one day that he had pesticide on him, and that the baby was sensitive to the pesticide. So they put him an outdoor shower in, and back in 1950 something, Steve had to take a shower outside of his house before he came inside so he could hold the baby. So this kind of goes right in there. You know, your washing machine, the same machine that you're using for your, you know, your delicate things that are going to be right up next to your skin, you're throwing these jeans and stuff into. So you at least should wash it separately. If you're doing a whole lot of the stuff, just you should have your own dedicated washing machine. You know. So user recommendations: users should wash hands before eating, drinking, chewing gum, using tobacco, or using the toilet. Now, they've done studies about the absorption of pesticides on your skin and things like that. And they actually got people, hey, you want to make some money? Come here, sit down. All right, so we're going to take a little sample of your blood. Okay, now we're going to daub a marker on different parts of your body. Wait a few minutes and take another sample of your blood. So sure, they got one guy to put his hands in something. I don't even know what it was. And then they got another guy to let him put a little bit on his lip. And then they got another guy to put a little bit right here in the soft of his arm. And then somebody was like, sure. So they put a little bit right there, and they discovered that like any product that goes on your genital area is like 100% going to get absorbed into your skin. Whereas something on your fingertips or something like that is only like 60 or something like that. I'd have to look at the chart. And different areas like the soft part of your arm is pretty high, but the eyelids, your lips, your face, your nose, 90% and such. So any of this stuff could get on you and it's transferred later. You know, we all know down here to wash our hands after we've eaten crawfish, right? So this is go on. Users should remove clothing, PPE immediately if pesticide gets inside. Then wash thoroughly and put on clean clothing. Pesticide gets on skin, wash immediately with soap and water. Users should remove PPE immediately after handling this product. Wash the outside of the gloves before removing. As soon as possible, wash thoroughly and change them to clean clothing. Now, it says, you know, you're supposed to wear your gloves when you're handling this stuff. If you're shopping for pesticides, you should probably bring yourself some gloves. Because anytime you touch these containers, I mean, you guys don't, you know, you pick it up and you're like, what's on my hand now? And it's like, is it just smush from the store, or is it like one of the containers in the package broke open and just spewed the stuff all over all the other containers? So it's nice to do that. This is just, again, we're talking about lawn care. So it says, you know, do not use when there's beneficial species of clover, because it's going to kill your clover. Apply when the weeds are young and actively growing. So this is kind of telling you that this product works better on newer young plants, where once they get to the mature stage, they're much less susceptible to pesticides. Mix to this rate, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It says, avoid applications during long excessive dry or hot periods. So again, here it is. What's interesting, so here you got what, fourth paragraph down, use higher rates within the range when weeds are dense or in flower. If hardy weeds persist, make a second application. Avoid applications during long, I mean, that should be a whole nother bullet point. This is what I'm talking about. Whoever wrote this wasn't all like, you know, this topic isn't really related to that topic. Avoid applications during long, excessive dry and hot periods. When grasses are under stress, use reduced rates within the range to reduce injury. Also, another bullet point, do not apply when it's too hot. So that's three things that they shoved into one paragraph. It's kind of like, well, that's something Dr. Joe would do. Never mind. Sorry. And do not irrigate within 24 hours after application. So don't put it in the rain, don't even irrigate. Blah, blah, blah. Do not use this product. This is so important. Oh my gosh. This is so important. Do not use this product on or near desirable plants, because it's a herbicide, right? Including contact or spray on exposed root systems or adventitious shoots within the drip lines of desirable trees and shrubs, since injury may result. Blah, blah, blah. So, you know, a tree is just as much a broadleaf weed as dollweed is. So that's just another reason that I don't like lawns. And it's just when people call up all the time wanting to know what kind of grass they can grow under their tree, the answer is no kind of grass. The answer is no. And this is one of the reasons, is because you can't put the weed and feed underneath the tree. And you can't even put it in the drip line of the tree. So that's important. Drift management, a variety of factors including weather conditions, the wind direction, and method of ground application can influence the drift. So you've got to pay attention to that. You know, when you start spraying, if you see this tiny little cloud flowing away from you, a big cloud of tiny little particles, one of the things the droplet size is one of the biggest things that influences your drift. So you can adjust your little sprayer Like I've got my little hand sprayer here, and I'm not getting much drift. I'm getting all the way to you guys, and it's staying in concentrate. But if I tighten it up, I start getting that mist. And if I get really tight, you know, oh, it's, you know.
Does he have Trimec in there?
It's just a little menthol, but you can see like those particles are just blowing everywhere. So particle size is important, and wind speed. You know, if it's completely still, it's not going to go anywhere. But as soon as I start blowing air, it goes. So you got to watch out for those things. Storage and disposal. Do not contaminate food or water. And this is again, I went over this already. Pesticide waste are toxic. Improper disposal of excess pesticide, spray mixture, or rinsate is a violation of federal law. These wastes cannot be disposed of using, according to the label directions, contact your state pesticide or environmental control agency or hazardous waste unit. So what they're trying to say is only mix the amount that you need. So this is an important step. If you need a half a gallon, mix a half a gallon, because everything else left in the container after you're done is waste, and you don't really have to know what to do with it. So that's really important. So many people mix up more than they need. So just a few tips and suggestions. Test your equipment before you add the product. You're like, I don't know if this thing works. This is the compressed air sprayer. I don't know if it works. But I'm gonna put some water in it, and I wanna go out there and pump it up and test it, and I wanna make sure that it works. And then I wanna maybe even dial it in to get the droplet size I want while it's still just water. And then I can go ahead and put my product in. Clean and maintain your equipment. So I wanna show you this, a little bit about that, but first of all, you want a clean container each time you go in. You don't want that old product in there. And there's a lot of things. This sprayer should last forever, but a lot of people, it only lasts like one application because something inside will get clogged and they'll just throw it away. Store insecticides in a cool, dark place because sunlight and the heat can break down the product. They can even break down the container that the product's in if you sit in sunlight. Take extra precautions when working with concentrates. So that's what they were talking about, like the mixing and loading instructions are, they needed an extra level of personal protective equipment because the concentrated form in that bottle is the most dangerous part. You know, that's when you, by the time you put the water in, you diluted it 50 to 100 times. But that concentrate is pure ingredient, and you know, you're opening a jar. We don't know if there's going to be like dried up material kind of at the lip. We don't know that if we're squeezing the bottle too hard, when we finally pop the lid off, it's going to shoot out the top. We don't know if it's just going to fall over, but there's a lot of things that can happen. This is one of your most dangerous times is when you're dealing with that concentrate. You know, opening the container can be the most hazardous because the gases can come out too. Are we at time? Oh. Watch those before you take them off. This was interesting. I found this on, looking for these labels, and this was a review on Amazon from somebody, and they were like, be sure to thoroughly read the directions before use. She's like, I'm in Florida, and for us, bugs are a 365-day problem. I am always afraid to apply anything that is not safe for humans and my pets, so oftentimes my plants suffer. This product is not something I would feel comfortable using. I always read the directions on any product I buy. Clearly not before she buys them. And I'm glad I read the directions for this horticulture dormant spray oil! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. The first page in the bottle, in bold letters states, precautionary statements, hazards to humans and domestic animals. As required by federal law, it said that. From there, it lists a bunch of how harmful this product can be if you get it in your eyes, in your skin, your clothing, the importance of washing your hands, and wear gloves, etc. This is one warning after, there is one warning after another, and for these reasons, I choose to not recommend this product. The brand name Safer Brand is very misleading and is anything but safe. Miss cakes. Well, it's not a warning, it's a caution, right? So that's technically all of that presentation. I was going to show you a little bit about the different things. And I can kind of show you, if you'll stay a minute, I can kind of take this apart. But the long of it is, if you're using one of these compressed air sprayers, there's like 3 screens in here that are designed to keep from picking up the little, some granules or something like that. So you got to clean the screens. But also, you know, the directions are here. Guys, read directions. You men, I'm talking to you guys. It actually tells you how to take this thing apart and maintain it. But one of the big things about these compressed air sprayers is that this thing, the plunger that makes all the air go, it has an O-ring on the inside, and you have to periodically lubricate that little O-ring right there, and make sure it's in good shape. If that thing, you know, gets a little dries out and starts cracking, then it'll not compress the air. And it's easy to do, easy to maintain those things. So just that kind of thing. Like this one, the screen, sometimes the screen is here at the top, sometimes it'll be at the bottom of the tube. This particular one, actually, this particular one, the screen I found in the very tip. So the screen that this one has is all the way here in the tip, and this, you're wondering why it's not spraying, you take it apart, and this one will be a clog, clean it out a little bit, make sure the tip is open, that kind of thing. But yeah, these definitely should last longer than 1 season, and pretty much all of them can be opened to put a little Vaseline. Vaseline is one of your best things, not water soluble. Yes, ma'am?
If anybody's gonna leave anything in there, make sure you label it properly.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very big deal. My husband kills things with Roundup because he forgot it was Roundup.
Yeah, yeah. She was actually saying, she said if you leave any product in one of these containers, so you mix up some, well, that go beyond that. Always, you're pretty safe to go between insecticides and fungicides. You can kind of mix those together in the same container and clean it out between. But you should your Roundup container only for the Roundup, because there might be just enough residual in there, even if you wash it out and dump it, that if you put your fungicide in later, you're just going to kill what you put around. So always definitely have a dedicated general herbicide, or keep your herbicide separate from your fungicide, because that is not good. But yeah, that's a good point. Oh, and one other point, they're talking about PPE. Leather is one of your worst things you can wear, especially your shoes. When you're out applying, it seems like all the drops land on your feet, you know, and it's really easy just to not notice that your feet are wet. But leather is absorbent and will suck up all that pesticide. And every time you put your shoes on, you're re-exposing yourself. So have yourself some, you know, rubber boots, preferably, if you're going to be doing some of that kind of stuff. All right? Yes, sir.
Does any of these pesticides actually expire, like long, like stored for many years? Is it still useful?
Well, they can expire, but even a lot of times you might have to contact one of us to determine what it is. But even sometimes if it's an older chemical, it's better to apply it according to legal directions than, say, try to put it in some landfill. But a lot of times we're going to tell you just go ahead and use it, and it might not have any effect, or it might have a reduced effect or something like that. But at least you're not putting it in something. But now there's other chemicals that we're going to be like, whoa, don't even be in the same room with that. You know, wait for the chemical disposal squad to come. But a lot of it, you know, is like that. But check the dates. It's better. She's asking if New Orleans still has the hazardous waste collection day. That's kind of a state program. So yeah, they do this rolling thing, and it goes around. So if you got anything, you have to contact us and see when they can do it and where and what you have to do. We actually just had one not long ago.
Doesn't that happen at the Elysian Field Station?
I don't actually know when and where it happens.
At the Elysian Field Station,
You have to call 311. It's not on a regular schedule anymore.
Oh.
With COVID, it's run by the state, actually, not the parents, but they will tell you when the next one's.
Any other questions? And we've only been
that
taking.
applicator there, that's obviously something that you hook up to your hose.
Yeah, well, so there's, there's a.
How do you control the amount of water?
Well, this one has actually got, so you've got, this is a hose end applicator. So you put the product in there, and this one actually has a dial, and it shows the rate. And now the directions say you want like a 25-foot spray. So I guess once you dial it in and you get the dial, you're going to be pretty close. The ones that you buy that are ready to go, they're pretty much attach and shoot. One of the labels I did find, like when you use one of these things, they said go to the area, make sure the thing's off, turn the water on, and then start your spraying. I have a little kind of semi-disagreement with that in that because you don't really know what pressure is going to come out. And I did that one time with one of those. And I had really good pressure at my last house, and when I turned it on, it just came flying out of there, shooting so far, it was dripped everywhere. So it was a good idea to open it sometimes, see how far it's going to go, and then turn it off and go to your location. But check that. But so we've only really been talking about liquids, insecticides or pesticides so far. So you got your classic, your hand pump sprayer. This is really good for a small application. Then you got the compressed air sprayer, which is good for bigger things. Then you got in between, you can get a small compressed air sprayer, and then the hose end applicator. These are all really good. If you get the granular, you're talking about spreaders, and that's actually, we can talk about that in the lawn care section. That's when you primarily use those. Okay?
Thank you.
Awesome.